Hello friends, welcome back and welcome to Rosemonde. Welcome to my colourful home. Hi, how are you this week? This is episode 2 and it's a delight to be back. I will introduce myself first. I am Roz and my pronouns are she, her. I am coming to you from Bristol, which is in the UK, in the southwest of the UK, and this is where I live with my husband James, my teenage son, and our little cat, who you may hear or see. We don't know. She may just stay asleep the whole time. But thank you. If you are new here, welcome to episode 2. And if you're coming back, welcome back. And thank you for your really warm welcome that you gave me on my first episode that I published about 10 days ago or so. I'm delighted that I decided to do it, and it's been really fun already, meeting lots of new people and chatting with them here, and then them sometimes finding me on Instagram. I will put where you can find me on the screen, maybe here this week, I don't know. So I'm on Instagram as Rosemonde, and also on Ravelry, but much less frequently there, so mostly on Instagram. I thought I would start this episode this week with just giving you a bit of an explanation about why I've called this channel Rosemonde Knits when my name is Roz, which is short for Rosemonde. When I was 5 years old, my family, I'm the second of 4 children, we moved to Montreal in Quebec in Canada from Cambridge here in the UK. And my dad had a job at McGill University, and so we all, 6 of us, got on a boat and travelled to Canada. I think my older brother was 7, I was 5, my sister was 2, and my little brother wasn't even 6 months old at that point. So we moved to Canada and lived in and around Montreal in Quebec for 5 years, and for me it was quite an identifying experience. I'm struggling to think of the word, but I went to schools where we weren't allowed to speak English, and so I had to learn French pretty quickly. I can still remember, what was it called? It was a little green French grammar book, and I think it was a Becherel or something like that. And I can remember carrying this little grammar book around with me so that I could get the tenses right when I was trying to talk to somebody. So anyway, in Canada, people called me Rosemonde, which we all thought was quite funny because it sounded so different to Roz or Rosie, which is what my family call me. But after coming back from Canada at the age of 10, that French speaking ability was like my thing, and it was the thing that I always knew how to do. And I had a vision of my future as living in France and having French speaking kids of my own, and I used to travel to France whenever I could in my teens. Used to get on a bus and travel the 20 plus hours it would take to get to France. So that's why my Instagram name is Rosemonde, and why this channel is Rosemonde Knits. But yeah, I'm Roz to most people here. So this episode, last episode, there were several finished objects because I was going over things I'd finished in the last few months. This week there are no finished objects, but I will talk about what I'm wearing and my main work in progress that I'm working on. A couple of stalled works in progress, so would love to hear what you think I can do about those. And some playing with colour, diving into my stash, I will be showing my stash to you in this episode, so if seeing a lot of yarn on shelves isn't your thing, then you don't have to watch this one, but I will give you warning when we get to that point. And as usual, I will be talking about podcasts I've been watching, and also there will be mentions of the disability that I live with. I'm housebound, bedbound, mostly because of myalgic encephalomyelitis. I'll put that on the screen, but I'll refer to that as ME. One of the weird symptoms I have at the moment, actually, just whilst I'm on that subject, is I think I have a kind of closed tear duct, or nearly closed, on this eye, which can come and go. So if I weep, I'm not emotional or crying, probably. It's just this strange extra lacrimation that I have. So hopefully that won't bother you too much. If it bothers me too much, I'll have to go and get myself a tissue or something. But anyway, let's start with what I'm wearing. I knit this about a year ago, just over a year ago. This is a pattern by Jennifer Beale, who is knitjbeale on Instagram. If you follow her already, you will know that her patterns are often seemingly quite complicated but beautiful, often mixing up lace with colour work, intriguing methods of construction, and I've always wanted to knit one of her patterns. And when she released the Ivanhoe cardigan, which is what this one is, I think she designed and knit her sample in a really deep purple, and yeah, as soon as I saw that picture I thought I need to drop everything and cast that on. And it was such a fun experience. This is probably the garment that I'm the most proud of making because of the different stages of the construction, and yeah, the lace repeats, and I have to say I enjoyed every single second of it. And again, I had done quite a good swatch for it, and it was so lovely to have it come out exactly the fit that I had hoped for. The only accidental mod that I made was, I think I knit a bit too long on the armhole and actually knit longer than the pattern called for. So I have a little bit of extra fabric here, which I might not have otherwise chosen, but I think it's just lovely. The yarn I used is by Bien Aimee, by Bien Aimee in their Felix base, and it's in their colourway lipstick, which I just love. And it only used, I think, 2 skeins because you get a lot of yardage for that base, and this was held single rather than holding it double, so a little went a really long way. So hopefully you will have seen some pictures on the screen of me wearing it, so you can get a better idea of the length. It reaches just past my hips, which I love. And yeah, so, and I think I got the buttons just from searching for buttons on Etsy in the UK. I can't remember. If I do find them, I will put where I found them, but I think they are fake abalone shell. I think they are. Anyway, so that's what I'm wearing. So last week I talked about 3 of my main whips, and as often happens, I find that I zero in on one, and because this one is a test knit, I have been motoring away on the Lavanya Patricella Railroad Pullover test knit, which I will put a picture up of her version on the screen. So this is a test knit, so may well have some adaptations. First of all, it's been really fun. What I might try and do, actually, I'm just going to put it on top of what I'm wearing. So hang on. So this is where we've got so far. So you may be able to tell that you cast on here and you knit sideways. So you stop here and knit the front, and then you go back and knit the back, and then you join them together again. So I've got a few more rows to go before I bind off this side, and then I don't know how it happens yet, but you attach the sleeves. I am hoping that this blocks out because it is really short on me at the moment, and I know that brioche does stretch, so I'm kind of hoping for that. And I think when I block it, I will pull it, because at the moment it comes to about 3 or 4 inches above my navel, so literally just underneath where my full chest ends. So it's the shortest thing so far that I've ever made, and because it's a test, I don't want to do any drastic modifications, but yeah, I'm curious to see how it blocks and how it all ends up looking. I may end up absolutely loving it this length, and as I've said before, because I spend so much time in the house and in bed, it might actually be a perfect thing to wear just while I'm sitting in bed. So we shall see. But I'm really enjoying the brioche. I'm enjoying the yarn, which is by the Wool Kitchen, mostly by the Wool Kitchen. I'll just do a little close up again so you can see. Hang on. There we go. You can see that. Yeah, that's the right side, and that's what the wrong side looks like, which is also quite fun, I think. So yeah, I've spent most of my time on this one. And what else do I need to say about this? I think, yeah, I'm knitting these on higher sharps, which are my absolute favourite. I think I've tried every single other kind of needle. I started off on wooden needles, and they were great for what I needed at the time. And then I tried Addies, but just found the tips too blunt and the joins too sticky. And I tried Jagoos, but they just weren't my favourite. And then I tried higher sharps, and I just loved the lightness of them. And yeah, they just feel like they're super slick, which I really like. And I don't mind the really pointy ends. I prefer them to be really pointy. So yeah, that is whip number 1 and main whip of the week. Now I thought I would bring and show you a couple of other works in progress that have been lingering, that have stalled. So here's the first one. This is where I've got to on the Aurora Cabin Shawl by Stephen West. It was part of his Hyber knit along, which he does every year in December, January time, I think. December, January, February, maybe. But yeah, this is his Aurora Cabin Shawl. And oddly, when I cast this on, I was really confident about the colours that I'd chosen, and I had these ones which I think came in a set for another shawl. These are by the Walk collection. And this is all on their fingering base. They actually have ball bands for a change. This is Iris on their cottage merino. Not sure if that's going to work. Anyway, it's a gorgeous, bright, sort of purpley blue. And then I really love this variegated one. And it is, oh yeah, so this is Morning Glory. Look at it. It's so lovely, isn't it? And then I think this one is Grace or Powder. Let's just double check. Yeah, it's Grace. This base, I think, yeah, it's a single ply. And I know a lot of people prefer to use single plies in shawls more than garments because they're just less hard wearing than, say, a 4-ply or a 2-ply. Personally, as I don't tend to wear my garments too hard, I'm quite happy to wear single ply in a garment. Very happy to do that. But so anyway, but I thought, well, I had this set, so what else could I put with these? And actually, I should have listened to my first instinct, because my first instinct was to pair different colours with these. But I, in the end, went for quite similar ones. Yeah. And what I found was, after knitting a little way, you'll see, after knitting a little way down, I started to think, oh, it's all looking a little bit the same, and I've seen some other people's versions of this shawl which have just looked a lot, I felt like the colours have been a little bit more contrasting and it made the pattern stand out better. So down the shawl I introduced this lightning yellow colour by Ching Fibre and then start blending it in there. And as I was knitting it, I was just thinking, no, I'm not feeling this. I don't like how introducing that colour looks, and I don't like how it wasn't contrasting enough to begin with. I mean, I'm not far off finishing, but we are at the long row stage now, and I just didn't want to keep working on it. So I think this is going to be frogged. But if you have some ideas or thoughts about what you might do, maybe you would just rip back to before I started introducing that bright yellow and keep the colours as they were and just have a really lovely kind of watery, non-contrasting shawl? Or what would you do? I'd love to know. Yeah, so that's sitting in a corner at the moment. And then my other stalled one, which I'm a bit sad about actually. And also, I'm sure this is probably a rookie error. Well, let's just hope that I haven't pulled all the stitches off already. No, okay. Oh, yeah, but it has, I'm not at the end of a row, so this is going to be slightly awkward. But there's a reason for it not being at the end of a row, which you will see. Okay. Well, this is a stunning design, and yarn, so this is the Saber or Saber shawl by Niddy Knits. I'll put her details on screen and also a picture of her wearing the shawl. This was one of those, again, that I saw pictures of Niddy Knits wearing her finished shawl and was just blown away by how beautiful it is. And the yarn is beautiful. It's by Fruitful Fusion, and that's Ishrat on Instagram. So you start at the top here and you work down. Yeah, really hard to show you because it's all kind of bunched up on the needle. And we're now, so it's a 550 gram fingering weight set of yarn from Fruitful Fusion, and then you pair that with mohair, which I used bits and bobs. I think I bought some Rowan online, and I had some Rowan in stash. So I just sort of imitated what Niddy Knits had done for her shawl. Yeah, in terms of yarn choice. But then we get to this last stage of the shawl, where you have several rows of mohair with fingering weight nups. Really hard to show you. I hope you can see that okay. And knitting the nups themselves was fine, no problem there. But then when you come back along the wrong side row after knitting your nup row, you have to purl using mohair through several stitches that you've created to create the nup and to sort of secure it. And for the life of me, I couldn't get my needle in. And I even tried to go right down to a size 0 needle to try and push that through and knit those stitches. And I just must have knit those nups really, really tight. So I will do this at some point because it is such a lovely shawl. And it's a shame to get to this stage and not actually finish it. But I think I must have over 600 stitches on the needles at this point, and I'm just putting off ripping out mohair. But it is just one row. So at some point I will bite the bullet and I will finish this and I'll show you. But yeah, I mean, if you have got any advice about what you would do if there's an other option other than ripping out a row, if there's another option to knit those nups in a happy way that saves me from pulling them out, let me know. And I'm sorry if I haven't really explained that properly, but this is another stalled whip. So that's 2 bluey shawls that are sitting in the corner without very much going on with them, I'm afraid. Now, let me just double check my notes to see. Yeah. So talking of shawls, several of you commented thank you on the shawls that you can see behind me. And I think last week I may have been quite zoomed in, so my face was taking up a lot of the screen. This time you'll see probably a bit more shawls that I have along this shawl wall here as well. So I thought I would walk you through some of the shawls that you can see. What I have done is I've already filmed a little video of being a little bit more close to these shawls. I haven't taken them off the walls in the video, but what I've done is put pictures of those shawls sort of so that you can see them properly, so you've got an idea of what you can see. And so it's really, I've done these ones that you can see behind me here, and another time I'll do more on the ones that you can see here. Spoiler alert, there's a lot of West knits. So this is the can you see? Yeah, this is the Slipstravaganza shawl by Stephen West, which was his 2020 mystery knit along. And there's a Shawlography peeping in there, which was his 2021. Yeah, Stephen West and others as well. So I will share those with you. Now, the next thing that I wanted to talk about is, I think I briefly mentioned that I had seen Joji release a new jumper, which was called Instant Crush. And I was really excited about it. And one of the reasons why I was excited about it is because I had a look at what the yarn requirements for my size would be, and I tend to knit around it. If there's 9 or 10 sizes, I usually knit a size 6 or so. So I had a little look at the yardage that was going to be needed for that pattern, and I was really excited to see that I probably have the stash to knit, well, I definitely have the stash to knit at least one, maybe even 2, but definitely 1. Now, I know that I was very excited to talk to you about the having my colours done thing last time, and how I'd found that whole exercise to be very directional and fascinating. So before I launch into going through my stash and what I've done so far to play with my own yarn, I thought I'd just hop back to that conversation that I started last week. And caveat to say, I haven't actually had my colours done. I had just looked at lots and lots of websites about that whole, are you a winter, are you a spring, in terms of colours that you should or shouldn't wear. And I think I said that I'd always assumed I was the same as my mum, and I'd always gone for those colours. And then after doing all that reading, I realised that I probably wasn't the same as my mum, and actually have found a whole new set of colours which I know I love, but I've been avoiding wearing. So for me, it was liberating and really directional, and gave me some really good ideas about putting colours together. Since the episode, I've heard from several people who have had the opposite kind of experience with having their colours done, and they're people who actually had a Colour Me type professional assess them and say, right, you are an autumn, or you are a winter, or whatever. And for some people, they found it the opposite to what I found, which was that they suddenly thought, right, all these colours that I love, I'm not supposed to wear. And so they found that it's really halted their creativity. And yeah, it's not unusual for me to get really excited about things that I don't know a lot about. So word of warning, please don't be persuaded entirely by things that I might jump up and down about and say, hey, please do your own research. And, all of that being said, I think I've been warned off having my colours done professionally, but I did find that reading around colour palettes really fascinating for me. And I haven't done a course in colour theory. Someone I watch here on YouTube, Shannon of Whiskey and Wool, who has a series called Knitter's Life, she's sort of in my top 3 absolute favourite podcasters, along with Kalisha of Quirky Monday Craftcast and Trish of Best Day Ever Crafting. But Shannon is a professor and has a background in fashion design. She has knitting patterns that she's published, and I love her sense of colour. She is another artist as well. And if you watch her episodes, she talks a lot about how she goes about placing colours in her knitting, placing colours in her spinning. And every time Shannon does one of those kind of colour focuses, I learn so much. I feel like I could still do with doing my own colour theory course, because I know that in all my swatching, I spend a lot of time doing swatches and I end up with something which doesn't quite fit, and I don't really know why. So I think I've got a bit of learning there to do, and that will be really fun. So what I'm going to do whilst I'm talking is I will either put a video in here or it will be playing as I chat. I haven't decided yet. I've got to figure these things out. But after I filmed episode 1 last time, I had a lovely creative 2 or 3 days of raiding my stash here in the stash room, craft room, and pulling out lots of single skeins, 2 skeins of mostly Ching Fibres Baby Suri alpaca base, which is alpaca, merino and silk, I think. And it's a base that they came out with back in 2018, I think. And I actually was really fortunate. Mum and I bravely and intrepidly went to Edinburgh Yarn Festival in both 2018 and 2019. Neither of us had ever been to a yarn festival before. And I was still able at that point to get in a wheelchair and get out, even if it was only to be at the festival for an hour or 2 of each day. But I was really excited to go, and so we did it, and we met Stephen West and lots of people who I had followed, and it was, you know, just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. But during that festival, we made a beeline for Ching Fibre. I had seen their yarn online already. I can't remember if I had already bought some of their yarn, but we had just a wonderful shopping experience with Layla at Ching Fibre, and I have made several garments out of Ching Fibre yarn. And when we were in her booth, we were really drawn to the melted baby Suri fibre base, and we picked up some skeins of that, and we were so pleased with ourselves because we then went and met Stephen West, which was incredible. And I think I asked Stephen, you know, what's the yarn that we should really look out for at this festival? What's the one that we should be excited about, kind of thing? And he said the Ching Fibre melted Suri base. So we were so pleased with ourselves because we'd kind of made a beeline and already bought some of that. And it is just the most soft and lovely base. So yeah, over the years since then, every now and then I will have bought a skein or 2 of a colour that I've just really loved, with absolutely no plans as to what I'm going to make with it. And people often sort of say, oh, you know, if you buy too many single skeins, then you'll have loads of single skeins and all you'll be able to do is make socks with them. But I think because I was so into knitting Stephen West shawls, and also I think I'd already made one of his jumpers that is lots of colours and lots of different texture, I've always thought of yarn buying as, you know, if you see one skein and there is only one skein available that you love, then buy it and it will find its place. Now over the years that has been somewhat curtailed, and I have tended towards buying sweater quantities rather than single skeins here and there, having said all of that. But I have amassed a couple of, well, certainly an IKEA cubbyhole full of melted baby Suri and mohair, so lots of lovely bright fluff. So yeah, I will either have been showing you, or you will see a video of me emptying those bags out on the bed and just moving them around and trying to think, right, I need this many colours for Hohi's jumper, you need more skeins of one colour for the main colour. And then I think I did some very rough maths, and I think I figured out that if I have 2 skeins of melted baby suri by Ching Fibre per contrast colour. That should just be about enough. 1 skein, well, I'll show you. So after all of that, I have come up with a couple of options, and here is 1 skein of that melted baby suri. I hope you can see that. Yeah, just so fluffy and lovely. Let me see if I can. Oh, it's hard to do on this one. Oh no, here we go. So yeah, it's quite thick, and I think you can. I've used this base in colour work on a fingering weight jumper, and it gave a really lovely puffy emphasis to the colour work. And it can also, I think this is quite a flexible base. It's probably sport weight, so it's 1. I can't read that at all without my glasses, which are in the other room. I think it's 175 meters for 50 grams. So it's quite, yeah, probably sport weight, but it's definitely got a lot of fluff to it, as you can see. So I did lots of playing around, and the first swatch that I knit is this one. And I definitely had that whole colour palette, spring bright colour palette in mind. I do like knitting. I often am drawn to that spring palette of bright colours, and I will happily knit those colours all year round. I don't have a sort of, oh, it's autumn now, so I want to knit autumn colours. I just have never wanted to knit autumn colours, really. So yeah, I've kind of stayed true to what I love. So here we go. So this top peachy colour is Peachy by Ching Fibre, and then this blue is another Ching Fibre, but I can't remember the colourway name. It was either Barefoot or it was an oceany themed one. But it's variegated, some of them, as you can see. The peachy one is less variegated. And then this darker pinky reddy peach, again quite variegated, is Aurora. And then the purple one is Purple Haze. So I have quite a few skeins of a peachy suri alpaca base, which actually I've only got 2 of the Ching Fibre, but I have more of, I've got a Chaos yarn suri alpaca, which I've got quite a lot in a peach colour, which I'm going to be quite sort of embracing imperfection here, in terms of I'll have one peachy colour for a bit, and then I'm going to have one that doesn't quite match, and I'm going to be fine with that. I think the fluffiness and the fun bright colours that are going to be popping here and there, for me, if the peach is varied, then it's not going to bother me. What do you think? What do you think? Do you like it? I'm a bit obsessed. My husband looked at it and he said, it looks like a fruit pastel. If you're in the UK, you'll know what a fruit pastel is. They're kind of little sweets. I wasn't quite sure, but he's a self-confessed colourblind person, so I don't know why I ever ask him what he thinks about colour. But yeah, I think that oh, wouldn't that be so fun? And I also think that because it's all over colour work, it would knit up really quickly, and it's a much looser gauge than I often knit at, so I'm very tempted to cast this on when Hohi does her full knit along cast on party. Very tempted to cast this on. So that's one swatch, and I'll just show you those yarns out of the swatch. Here we go. So these are the 3 warmer colours. That's the Peachy by Ching Fibre, that's Aurora, and that's Purple Haze. And then I haven't got it in the skein, but this is the, what I think is called the Barefoot colourway. I'm sorry if it's not called that. I haven't actually seen Ching Fibre do a blue variegated melted baby suri base for a while, but I don't check all the time, so I don't know. I really love that, how that variegation shows up in the knitting. What have I done with that swatch now? Here we are. Yeah, I really enjoy that, especially when you put it against a colour that isn't variegated. I think that makes it really, it looks very watery and lovely and makes it really pop out. So yeah, I love this colour combination, and that one I think is a winner. But as I was playing with all of those skeins, I was very drawn also, and yeah, and also based on what yarn I had, I did another swatch. So I have quite a lot of this colour, and certainly enough for it to be the main colour. It is another Ching Fibre, and for the life of me I can't remember what the colourway name was. I'm sorry. It's a variegated, it's got a very slight peachy undertone, but it's got these little pops of sort of limey yellow in there. If I can find out the colourway name, I will put it on the screen. And then I had another blue by Ching Fibre, slightly paler than this one with a bit more green in it. And then this pink is actually by Cheshire Yarns, Julia, who just dyes all my favourite bright colours basically. She honestly, I could spend an absolute fortune in her shop because all of the colours that she dyes I just love. But yeah, there's this pink from Julia which is called Tickled Pink, and that's Suri Alpaca held double because that's a lace weight. Excuse me. And then this is another Julia colour which is one strand of baby Suri Alpaca in there. Is it neon lime? I can't remember. Held together with 2 strands of Zanetto mohair in Kryptonite, I think, which is really deep stash. Yeah, and there's that variegated Ching Fibre again. I'm also really drawn to this palette, and I know that it's not quite right, and again I don't really know why, but I really like the main colour, that pale peachy, and I love this variegated, and I love this pink and green together. I just don't know if it all works together. But whilst I'm pondering on that, and as I ponder on that, I expect to have sort of aha moments where I think, oh, I know what I'll go with that. I may well knit this one because I think this is just going to be a winner. We had such a weird summer this year. Tangent. We had such a weird summer this year. Last year it was really hot, much hotter than we normally get here in the UK. Our climate is mild generally. In terms of Fahrenheit, if you're in the US, pardon me, we don't tend to go below 30 degrees and we don't tend to go above 80. We really sit in that very narrow window. And yeah, it varies, and yeah, we get a lot of rain. But at the moment, it is a lot colder than it normally is at this time of year. So I'm already thinking, oh, this will be so nice in the morning when I don't feel very warm. And yeah, I can't wait to have something like this right next to my chest where you feel the cold when it starts getting cold. What do you think? I have to say I had a lot of fun doing these swatches. I had a lot of fun. And I was very tempted to cast something on straight away with what I'd been playing with, but I was good and carried on with my test knit. Right, let's put those away. So that was my yarn play, and I expect you will have seen some of the yarn collection that I have here. I tried to find, I have somewhere in the house, I have Clara Parks, one of Clara Parks's books. I'll put it on the screen. I can't remember the title of this one that I'm thinking about. But if you've read any of Clara Parks' books, you will know that she has been in the knitting industry for decades and is quite a legend, a great sense of humour, great writer as well. And she wrote a book about knitter's stash and yarn collections. And each chapter, I think, was written by a different knitting personality who was talking about their stash in different ways. And I think the way that I feel about it is that everybody is different. Some people really feel uncomfortable having a lot of stuff in general, or having lots of yarn makes them feel anxious about all the projects they haven't cast on yet. For me, it is utterly therapeutic to have all of this colour around me, and to have, you know, when I'm not well enough to sit up and knit, for example, I spend hours at home lying in bed thinking about all of the different patterns that I could actually knit with all of this yarn. And it's such a great kind of, you know, fantasy land to go into when you haven't got anything else that you can do. So I spend many hours dreaming up what I might knit with different of my stash. And yeah, one of the chapters in Clara Parks' books describes knitting stash as like having a paint palette, or yeah. And I think that is pretty much how I feel about my stash. It's that, have I got the right colours that I need to create the next project? And so making sure that I have the exact tone of pink that's in my mind, or peach or coral or whatever it is. If I don't have the exact shade that I feel like will go with the other colours, then it bugs me. So I like to have the options there and ready, and then, you know, like when the Lavanya test comes along, I'll have yarn in my stash ready to go. And yeah, it's, you know, I used to, when I was out in the world, not have the time to spend so much time thinking about knitting, and would need to spend money on haircuts and clothes and restaurants and coffees every day and things like that. And that's just not my life anymore, and that's actually completely fine. It just means that I spend more time thinking about yarn and knitting. So I think what I'm trying to say is, you do you, and you know, big stash, small stash, doesn't matter. So yeah, I'm going to have a little break, and I'm going to come straight back. Okay, I'm back. So, a couple of other things. I have got some more dream projects that I have, apart from Instant Crush by Joji. 2 years ago, I had several yarn countdown calendars in December, and until recently I hadn't knit any of them. So I last year didn't have any yarn countdown calendars because I was just a bit disgusted with myself. I had all these yarn countdown calendars that I hadn't knit. But I did feel really quite sad not having something to open every morning in December. So this year I have 3 coming. And in an attempt to make space for the new yarn countdown calendars that are coming, I want to try and use at least 2 of the yarn countdown calendars that I have already. You saw last time, if you watched last time, that I knit the Masala scarf by Soraya Hussain using one of those calendars. And so, yeah, I'd like to knit 2 more that will then make space for the 3 that are coming this year. So the first project I will put on the screen. This is a pattern by a friend who we followed each other on Instagram for quite a long time, have a similar love for colour and kind of adventurous knitting. And her cherry on top poncho pattern is, again, it was one of those, as soon as I saw it, I knew I was going to have to knit it. Despite the fact that I'm not a massive bubble fan, on this pattern, which hopefully you'll be seeing, on this pattern, I think the bubbles just look perfect, and yeah, they need to be there. So one of the advent calendars that I want to use, and as soon as it arrived and I'd opened it all, I had Mary, I can't remember how to pronounce your name. I had your pattern in mind. So Sweet Nesting Texture Yarn Countdown Calendar from 2021. I am hoping to weave into those bits of the poncho which are like the stripy bits. So I haven't quite yet figured out how it's going to work, but I'm going to make it work somehow. Yeah, I haven't figured it out yet. The other thing I wanted to say about this pattern in particular, and it harks back to another podcast that I have binge watched in the last 10 days. I've watched about 6 or 7 episodes. It's Jen Paracchini and Elizabeth James. Hang on. Where is it? Oh, Elizabeth Margaret Knits. So it's JP Knits, I'll put it on Instagram, and Elizabeth Margaret Knits. They have started a new series on their YouTube channel, which is One Wild Designs. I say new, it might not actually be that new. I don't know, it's new to me anyway. But I've known JP Knits Jen for a while, or I followed her for a while, and I know that she's kind of famous for designing patterns or tech editing or consulting with pattern designers to create designs that fit really well. And she's just got one of those brains that I love. And watching Jen and Bess talk about how to make garments that fit your body, it goes along with that whole wanting to shine in the body that I am in now, wanting to make garments that I feel good in. And I know that there are some really popular designers who don't incorporate, even short rows to raise the back of the neck, or bust darts for people with larger busts, and all of those little things, which I know Jen and Bess do in all of their patterns, can make a garment go from looking a bit, whatever, to looking really good. And so I highly recommend going to watch One Wild Things. They were Knit, Fix and Chill, I think, on YouTube. But they're a lot of fun together, Bess and Jen. But in and amongst the fun, there is that, what really appeals to me is their, right, so for this kind of a body, or, if this person has got that particular thing in their mind about their body and how will they make that garment fit them, this is what we would recommend. And I've watched loads of their episodes, and I think not all of it has gone in, because a lot of it is quite new information to me. So, but I know where to go now if I've got a design that I want to knit, and I'm not quite sure how to make adjustments to it, I will go to them, definitely. So yeah, recommend them. And that was the tangent. Coming back to the cherry on top poncho, there was something that Jen said in one of their episodes about how not all designs have to be a kind of proper garment design, that there are some designs out there that can and should just be inspiration. So Mary, in her cherry on top poncho design, is very open, and before you even buy the pattern, she says quite openly at the top that she hasn't graded the pattern for different sizes. She has fibromyalgia as well, and so cognitive dysfunction is something that is a big issue for her, and so obviously I identify with that, and I'm very understanding of that, and so I heard what Jen was saying about how some patterns can and should just be inspiration, and I think the cherry on top poncho is one of those for me. So Mary and I definitely have different body shapes, and mine is larger. So what I'm going to be looking to do is, I've got an idea of what gauge Mary uses for her sample, and what I will do is either look at the pattern and see what adjustments I need to make it fit me comfortably, or I will increase the gauge. But it's going to be an interesting exercise, especially as with the sweet nesting yarn countdown calendar, those yarns are different weights. So yeah, I may end up deciding to use the sweet nesting calendar for something else and making it more simple on myself in terms of just using one yarn for the whole garment and the whole poncho, and then making adjustments that way. We'll see, but that's certainly something that's in my mind, and I would love to use that countdown calendar before December if possible. And then the other countdown calendar I would like to use this year, and what I'm thinking of doing is actually knitting it in December, because I don't want to knit on any of my yarn countdown calendars until I've opened up the whole thing. I like to see what they all are as a whole before I then allocate them to a project. So this is the other project that I would love to make. Inez of Pink Queen Yarns, I followed her for a long time. She was Edla006 or something on Instagram for a long time, and she's now as Pink Queen Yarns. And she's gone from being a corporate person to a yarn dyer full time. And again, Inez's sense of colour, she's always been the pink lady, but she also does some great pinks and oranges and corals and peaches. So obviously right up my street. I was really lucky to meet Inez at Edinburgh Yarn Festival back in 2018 and 2019. And she's very dear and lovely. So I have this precious yarn from her yarn countdown calendar 2021. And this pattern, the Orlando wrap by Tanya, is designed with that specific yarn. And this wrap, again, I mean, there are so many patterns that you can knit with countdown calendars. But as soon as I saw Tanya's wrap, I thought, well, that's just perfect. So you'll see pictures on the screen of the pattern and also of the yarn countdown calendar. So that these are sort of dreams for before the end of 2024. But the next thing that's coming up, I may well cast on the Instant Crush and then immediately go into starting to think about the West Knit mystery knit along for this year, because his pattern sale goes live, I think, in a couple of days. So 1st of September, because it's a mystery knit along, you don't get the pattern yet. What you'll get is an overview of the tools you'll need and the yarns you'll need for when the first clue of the pattern is released in October, beginning of October. I don't know the date yet, but this time of year it's just so fun for me. I have several friends around the world. Hi Rebecca, who in this month leading up to cast on day, we kind of go into a bit of a frenzy about which colours we're going to choose, and we're raiding our stashes every other day to think about different options, and we change our minds. I have got a whole pile of swatches from when I have been in that lead up to Mystery Knit a Long Time for West Knits over the years, and so in the coming weeks no doubt there will be an episode here where I show you some of those, and as well as what I'm thinking of for this year. This year all I know is that it's called Geo Gradient, so in my head it's like, okay, so maybe it's a gradient, in which case I might be able to use another advent calendar that I have, so we shall see. But it's really exciting. I think Stephen West is going live at some point on the 1st or the 2nd or the 3rd of September to talk about that sort of excitement and introduction to what this Mystery Knit Along is going to be all about. So I will certainly be trying to jump on that live and go from there. I mentioned in passing last time, but just to give a little bit more of a shout out to Irina of Fibre Chats, Irina Shah. How long have you been doing your channel now, Irina? Is it 2 years? But Irina's Fibre Chats channel, if you haven't seen it, is where Irina interviews people from the knitting community around the world. She interviewed me in 2021, and I remember saying to her, but I'm just a knitter, I'm not a designer or a dyer or anything, like why would you want to interview me? And she just thought, you know, for Irina, she interviews humans who knit, some of whom may design, some of whom may dye yarn or run yarn shops or yarn events. But I really recommend going to her channel if you haven't already, because the people that she interviews I find very interesting from around the world, and Irina has just got a really natural style. In my old corporate job I used to have to do lots of interviewing and meeting people, and so I can spot a good interviewer and also a not so good interviewer quite easily, and Irina is just a delight and makes you feel comfortable and asks questions that other interviewers wouldn't ask. And yeah, anyway, big shout out to Irina, and especially at this time of year, because last year she did a Humans of West Knits series where every week of the Mystery Knit Along, where a clue was released for the pattern each week, she would have a group of humans who were knitting the West Knits Mystery Knit Along shawl and would chat to them about how they were finding it. And she put a huge amount of work into that, and it was so fun for a lot of us who were knitting along and scratching our heads as to where on earth that pattern was going. So yeah, thanks Irina for interviewing me and for all of the work you do in the community. It's much appreciated, and I hope you're going to do something similar this year. Keeping my fingers crossed that you do. Yeah, so that's West Knits. And I think that probably is enough for today. I have no idea how long we've been going. No idea. I'm just going to check. Yeah, there's several other podcasters that I would just like to quickly recommend, and we'll probably go into more detail. But some of my current favourites. So there's Nyla by Knits by Nyla, who is just, you feel like you're just sitting and knitting with a friend, and she has some beautiful knits on her needles and crochet patterns. She's just a beautiful maker, and I really love watching Nyla. if you don't already follow Alex of the Serenity Knitting Society, she's a joy. She's really funny. Again, a beautiful maker, and another one that when one of her episodes goes up, I drop everything and watch her. New to me was Lucy Ann of the Front Porch Knitter. I think she was on the back porch last time, but just so natural in front of the camera, and just a really lovely time spent hanging out with her and knitting. Yeah, really enjoyed hers. And then a new podcaster like me, I think she released her first episode a week before I released mine, was Megan of A Knotty Mess, and she just looks like she's been doing it for years, like effortless. Completely effortless, and I take my hat off to you, Megan. Again, really fun, interesting and honest perspective of what she's making. Another plus size knitter, which I really appreciate, especially. So yeah, there's just a few, and there are many more, but I think we've probably gone on long enough. So do let me know where you are from. It's been really fun to see that. I know people always say that, but it actually is really fun to see, oh, someone's watching from Tasmania or Australia or the Netherlands, or yeah, really fun. And also what you're excited to cast on in the coming month or two, or if there's a knit that you're working on right now that you're really enjoying, you know, that would be great to hear those things. And also tag me on Instagram if you're knitting something that you love. Just tag me in it. I'd love to see what you're making. But thank you for coming to episode 2. I feel a little bit like a hot mess this time, but it feels really good to be here with you, and yeah, see you again soon. Bye.